Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Brazil refuses to answer questions about its gold reserves. Let's explore. Makes one wonder just how transparent some of these central bankers are about the gold they hold. There's been speculation as to how much gold China really does own, or Russia, and really any of the BRICS nations, of which Brazil is one, for sure. But nonetheless, there is some questions, and in fact, many have questioned first world nations, or the other Western world especially, how much gold even we have. People question the authenticity of the holdings of gold of the United States Federal Reserve. In other words, how much gold is really in Fort Knox? We do need a transparent audit, I think, of some sort, something that can give us a little bit more confidence, although, admittedly, we know that no matter how much is revealed about the reserves of gold here in the United States, there will be always people that question it, as is the case with other nations around the world. But there are legitimate questions for sure, especially from China, as to how much gold they actually own. There's an article here that was sent to me by a member of the community from gold-eagle.com, talks about this question. A reporter has asked from the central bank itself in Brazil. It says this year has been shaping up to be a strong one for central bank gold buying. This is despite the official absence from the buy side of central bank gold powerhouses such as Russia and China. Instead, there has been a noticeable trend of a diverse group of central banks who are not regular gold buyers deciding to step up and make substantial gold purchases over short periods of time. You've heard me talk about some of these nations and some of this gold buying by these central banks on this very channel. First up in Europe was the Central Bank of Hungary, Magyar Nemzeti Bank, which stunned the gold market in early April. In fact, I think I covered that article when it announced that it had bought 63 tons of monetary gold during March of 2021. Next up in Asia was the Central Bank of Thailand, which revealed that over the 2 months of April and May 2021, it had added a total of 90 tons of gold to its reserves, specifically 43.5 tons during April and another 46.5 tons in May. And now, most recently, the attention has moved to South America, where the International Monetary Fund data submitted by Brazil's central bank, the Banco Central do Brasil, the BCB, reveals that after adding 11.7 tons of gold in May, the Brazilian central bank bought another 41.7 tons of gold in June, making a 2-month buying total of 53.5 tons in monetary gold. Wow, that is something else. This now boosts Brazil's gold reserves to a claimed 121 tons and puts South America's largest economy in 32nd position in the sovereign monetary gold holding rankings. These three sets of gold buying from Thailand, Hungary, and Brazil now make this trio the top 3 central bank gold buyers so far in 2021. And here we can see in this chart here, we've got the Brazil's additions here in this chart. Fascinating indeed. And it covers the changes in the gold holdings over April, May, and June. In the case of Thailand, 2021 was the first time since 2011 that the Bank of Thailand had made a substantial purchase of gold. In the case of Hungary, the 2021 purchase was only the second time it had entered the market for many years, the other time being Hungary's large gold purchase of 28.4 tons in October of 2018. In the case of Brazil, 2021 was the first time since 2012 that the Banco Central do Brasil had gone out and purchased gold, and at 53.5 tons was BCB's largest gold purchase since the year 2000. Wow, that's pretty alarming to see. There's several takeaways from this I think we can take that we can process here or ascertain. But let's talk about this Brazilian gold reserves and the lack of transparency thereof. It suddenly struck the author that no one seems to know very much at all about Brazil's sovereign gold reserves. At the main pages of the BCB website about Brazil's gold reserves, you will find nothing. For a top 3 purchaser of gold during year-to-date 2021, this seems very odd. For example, where are these gold reserves held and stored, and in what form? More importantly, where did the Banco Central de Brazil buy the gold that it claims to have bought so recently during May and June? And who was the seller? What were the BCB's gold holding motivations in adding 53.5 tons? And critically, does Brazil lend out its gold and only holds claims of gold, or does it hold any allocated and unencumbered gold bars and set aside accounts with foreign central banks? So the author decided to put my questions to the BCB directly, whose headquarters are in Brazil's federal capital in Brasilia. And this is where it gets interesting. For a while, Hungary's central bank was very forthcoming in explaining why it purchased 63 tons of gold during March, and even published a press release and photos of the gold bars purchased. The same cannot be said for the Banco Central de Brazil. In the author's email to the BCB, he informed them that he was from Bullion Star and that I was researching Banco Central de Brazil's gold reserves. My questions focused on why and where the recent claimed gold purchases of the Brazilian central bank were made, and in general, where the Brazilian gold reserves are stored. So here's an email that was sent out. He actually posted the email here, and we'll go ahead and read it. He has some questions about the BCB recent purchases of gold as part of the BCB's international reserves policy. According to IMF data, BCB purchased 11.7 tons of gold during May and 41.7 tons of gold in June, making a 2-month total addition of 53.5 tons of gold, or about a 79% increase. And BCB now holds about 121 tons of gold. Could you confirm why the BCB boosted its gold reserves during May and June, how it relates to the international reserve policy of gold being added for diversification purposes as a store of value, the gold which BCB purchased during May and June, where was this purchased? In other words, was it the Bank of England in London or the Bank of International Settlements? And why was this gold repatriated to Brazil? Where in general is the BCB gold stored? Is it stored abroad or is it stored domestically in Brazil? The gold which was purchased in May and June, is it in the form of allocated London gold delivery bars? Or is it just gold ounces? In other words, pool allocated. Does the BCB engage in gold lending with counterparties? And if so, how much of the BCB's gold reserves are currently on loan? Does the BCB ever buy domestically produced gold from mining output in Brazil? So their response was pretty interesting here. The Brazilian Central Bank responded a few days later. It says, due to legal constraints, citing a law from 2001, Banco Central de Brazil declines to comment on operations relating to the management of foreign reserves. All data and information considered of public interest is published periodically on the International Reserves Management Report, and they link to it there. Best regards. So they did respond. They outrageously refused to answer any of the questions that were posed, while immediately resorting to citing a domestic bank secrecy law from 2001 that provides blanket secrecy to its activities and operations. It's their prerogative, but it does make one wonder what's going on, and it may be that here's a screenshot of it there, but it makes you wonder kind of what's at play here. As the article does continue, and it talks about irrelevant reports and how kind of the media talks about this and what's the motivation behind some of this. Why would they be secret about it? Maybe they're concerned about attack, maybe, especially if it's domesticated or in country. Who knows? There's going to be a myriad of different reasons and motivations why nations would be secret. It seems like for those where questions arise, it is of those BRICS nations. And so it makes you certainly wonder, and we should all be very close to the chest about our own personal gold holdings, because really, what is it about? It is about wealth preservation and protection during times of economic instability. Worst case scenario, total economic collapse. Total economic collapse can lead to disorder in the streets, and therefore there's a need to protect your gold. And maybe that is some of the motivation behind Brazil's reasons for not answering these questions. What are your thoughts below? Pretty interesting news indeed. It's fascinating to see what other central banks are doing and their philosophy of accumulating or not. Or maybe lying about the accumulation of that gold in order to give them a sense of status symbol for which they don't have. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, and stack on.